Hi friends, Max Elage here. On this episode of the Corpus Animus podcast, we have training think tank coaches Becky Rogers and Kyle Ruth on to talk about the big mistake that athletes often make when they change their diet or nutrition leading into the open. If you're on the go and you want to listen to just the audio version, subscribe to the Corpus Animus podcast on your favorite podcast app. Train along some of the best athletes in the world at the sport of CrossFit. To get a free sample week of our current training cycle, head over to trainingthinktank.com/DSGN.
Time is relative. So speaking of time, we've got 3 weeks.
Oh, that was a good segue.
How did I do? We've got 3 weeks to the CrossFit Open. So things are moving pretty quickly now. I mean, we're basically in crunch time.
Yeah.
I was curious. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you when we got into this conversation was, all right, we're 3 weeks out from the Open. What should people who are focusing on the Open or focusing on, this is their peak. The Open is their peak. What should they be focusing on from a nutrition perspective? Should they be doing their cut right now?
I don't know. I feel like 3 weeks
Is that a joke,
out,
Kyle?
That was
3 weeks out is not much time to make changes, but it is time to kind of refine what you want to do.
Can you screw it up right now?
Well, yeah, if you eat pizza every day, you could screw it up.
Wait, so if I ate pizza every day for the next 3 weeks?
I should say if you ate in a calorie surplus and you didn't want to gain weight and mess up your digestion, yeah, you could do a lot of damage in 3 weeks. But
I feel like messing up my digestion would be the exact thing that happened if I ate pizza for 3 meals a day for the next 3 weeks.
Pizza is fine. Everybody can have pizza, but not a whole pizza every day for 21
This
days.
reminds me of a conversation we've had before about
Oh, for
good
sure.
food and bad food. I feel like we should have that debate
We
now.
could.
I still think there's such a thing as bad food. I think a Twinkie is bad food.
Well, I think bad depends on your definition.
Okay.
There's definitely bad, but what people think is bad isn't bad.
But I also eat bad. What I would, so I classify foods as good food and bad food,
Yeah.
just the way that I was raised, and I kind of never got out of that. But
What's a bad food to you?
a donut, and I eat.
Kyle eats donuts. He sends me pictures.
every Saturday, I send Becky a picture of all the donuts I'm going to eat.
Yeah.
Someone made fun of me. I posted a picture of a donut, and I put your quote.
Yeah.
Just eat the damn donut, Kyle. And they were like, "That's a tiny donut." What they didn't realize is that was like the sixth of those donuts that I was eating.
Yeah.
Hey, Kyle, what's like the fluffiest you've ever been?
Like body weight?
Yeah. Because you've never been like not gross. You've never been like out of shape
No, I haven't.
in your whole life.
The least in shape I've ever been was when I ran track, because I shouldn't say run track. I ran the 100 and I did high jump and long jump. So my practices were very much just me like kind of sitting around, then I'd sprint down
5
the thing
seconds.
and jump. And that was probably the fluffiest I've been. I was 14, a freshman in high school.
Now, what if that was the fluffiest you've ever been? Like, what did that look like?
I don't know. I was probably like 12% body fat at that point.
So you still looked pretty good.
Well, I was just skinny. I mean, I was like
you
100.
didn't have muscle.
I probably weighed 135 pounds and was like 5'7".
Because I've definitely noticed like you're the kind of person who could eat, because you don't necessarily eat like awesome clean foods all the time.
He doesn't have to try
but
very hard.
Yeah, you could be the guy who eats pizza most days of the week and probably still looks that way.
I'd say that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's the case.
Some people are like that.
I still wonder if it's a function of like, I've never taken a real extended break away from training. Like the least I ever trained was 2017 to 2018. And still then, so go out in my garage and do functional bodybuilding for an hour, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Like,
and do you think it's probably your swimming background too? Like that is just rigorous and your body is just primed to burn calories from years and years.
I have no idea.
What about the days that you do go off the rails pretty hard? Do you think that if you were to tally it all up, that at the end of the day, you'd still be at like a maintenance level of calories? So you're eating crap foods, but in the in what would technically come out to be.
No, I don't.
Because you think you're still way overdoing it?
Yeah. What happens to me is like, if let's say someone were to buy a package of Oreos, right?
Hypothetically speaking.
It's not in my pantry right now.
And they put the Oreos within a arm's length reach of me. I'll eat the entire package.
Oh, for sure. I've had arguments with people. I remember one of the funniest times a whole group of people laughed at me at my expense was like at a party sometime in college. And they busted out some Oreos and I was like, nah, I can't.
you know, when I was first trying to get in shape. And she was like, some girl was like, you don't have to eat the whole sleeve. And everybody had a good giggle. And I was like, yeah, you do.
Yes, actually,
I do, yes.
Actually, see, here's milk.
What's the point of one Oreo?
Here's milk and here's Oreos. And it turns out I have to eat all of it at once. But no, like I don't do that very often.
Yeah.
Here's a pro tip. Haley, my wife, does our grocery shopping, and I just tell her, don't buy Oreos.
Well, yeah.
Because if she buys Oreos, then I'll literally, the first day, I will eat all of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for being able to moderate yourself, but a lot of people can't do that. So I tell people, don't buy that food.
Yeah, just straight up don't buy it.
Just don't buy it. Yeah.
That's the secret to being lean. Don't buy foods you shouldn't eat.
It seems kind of obvious, but yeah, don't buy the Oreos.
So anyway, I think the bad food, good food debate, I think is a fascinating one, at least for me, because I still have a hard time I look at a Snickers bar.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's bad.
Yeah.
Right. But I can understand how it would exist on a spectrum.
Yeah. Depends on the person and what the goals are and where they came from.
What's your definition of good food, bad food?
Well, I think good food is goal dependent. And if
I like that. Damn, I think I've already lost this argument.
If you are trying to lean out, good food will help you lean out. If you're trying to gain weight, good food will help you gain weight. And I kind of think about it like on the extremes. If it's someone who, I don't work with these people, but like if you're recovering from an eating disorder, you have to be able to eat stuff that used to be really scary to you and that you used to think is bad. And that can be a way to kind of not like heal, but get through that process. And then the other side of it, if you're not used to restricting and eating whatever you want, probably that kind of food isn't good for you, but it depends on who the person is.
And what their goal is.
I
think you win the argument. As soon as you go, it's goal dependent. I'm like, damn it.
That's what I try to get people to talk about is what are your goals? Not, clean or being good because that just brings emotion and guilt and feelings into it. And that's what's hard about food in the first place.
So that makes giving blanket recommendations for what people should do 3 weeks out from the open incredibly hard because it really is goal dependent.
It's goal dependent.
Excuse me. What I would need to do 3 weeks out from the open is very different than say what Travis would need to do 3 weeks out from the open, which would be very different from someone who's like, man, my primary goal is to get leaner and I'm just doing the open because I'm having fun.
I mean, I think if performance is your goal in the open, it's always a good idea to practice what you want to do around those workouts. So I hope most people, well, I don't know what most people do, but if you're going to do the open on Fridays, you're doing CrossFit kind of workouts on Fridays to get your body used to doing that. So what are you going to do on Thursday to get ready for that workout on Friday? And what are you going to do?
What should we be doing on Thursday to get ready for that workout on Friday?
Well, I like to answer with it depends, but it depends on what the workout is. In general, if the open workout is like a short, sprinty kind of workout, I would have people do a little bit of a refeed the day before just to like get their glycogen stores all ready to go. But if it's a longer, like AMRAP-y kind of workout, I wouldn't really have them change anything. But then after the workout, I would probably have them eat a little bit more.
So if the workout's long, refeed after. If the workout's short, refeed before.
Yeah, that's usually what I say.
What about, so one of the things that I've always struggled with is eating during a competition. And I've seen some people talking about this and I love this concept, but training yourself to be able to train or exercise or perform on a full stomach. And I think you were the first one to kind of bring this idea up to me. What would you have people who are like shoe-ins to make it to stage 2 start practicing, doing the open workouts on a full stomach?
I would say more during training. So if you think about the person who's not too concerned with the open, maybe isn't even too concerned with stage 2, but they're training 3 times a day maybe. And so I was just talking to Travis about this.
I was going to say, this sounds like you're talking about someone specific.
We got to get working on this, but pick a day that has a harder CrossFit piece and then just eat before and see what happens. And maybe you throw up, maybe you feel fine, but now is kind of when you want to practice that, not 3 months later. When
that happened to me in the middle of 18.2. So 18.2 is what? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Dumbbell front squat, bar facing burpee. And then you have the cleans after.
Yeah.
And I finished the first part of that workout, 18.2. And I think I did my first clean. I opened at like 275. And then I had to go out the bay doors at the back, throw up, turn around, come back. It was like red Gatorade. It's like as bad as it gets too. Maybe a little bit of breakfast. Came back hit my next clean, which was like 307 or something. Walked out the door, threw up. And at that point, someone was yelling at me. They're like, you can't go outside of your camera. I'm like, I'm not going to throw up on the floor. But like, that's a real, like being able to deal with that.
Yeah.
And just recognize that like, yes, I can walk out there, I can throw up and I can come back and still hit a decent clean.
And I think practicing, experimenting with different foods to eat that maybe you won't throw up, like maybe don't eat Pop-Tarts, maybe eat a banana or something, just find something.
To be clear, we're not recommending that people intentionally make themselves throw up in the middle of workouts, but also recognize that it happens. That's something that's happened to me, but I am certainly not alone in like, hey, you're having to deal with throwing up in the middle of a workout.
Yeah. And why not do it in training when it's not as big of a deal?
You're talking about for people who are going to make it to the further stages where it's like a multi-day of thing.
And that's really why, is because stage 2, is potentially going to be a bunch of events packed into a short number of days. And so you have to do multiple events in the same day. You're going to have to eat something, even if it's, liquid, but you're going to have to get calories and sugar and all those things back into your body so that your body can continue to perform, not just that second event, but people need to be thinking about like between event 1 and 2, whatever you're eating at that point is really fueling you for event 3 and 4.
Oh, for sure. And the next day.
And 5 and 6, 2 days later. Yeah. So that would be, I think, a big thing that people are going to make it through need to be considering.
Right. But just the open, I would say practice now, just perfect conditions, because you can make them your perfect conditions, whatever that is for you.
That's
how many people come to you, Becky, before the open looking for nutrition advice. Is this like a popular time of year where people are wanting to dial in nutrition or not so much?
I haven't had anybody reach out that says, please help me get ready for the open. I would say it's a little bit too late for that now anyway.
Sure. Well, that's what your advice would be. But are people like, is this a time of the year that prompts people to want change? My hypothesis was no.
No, but I think that people are aware of how long it could take. So I've had some people say like, oh, next year, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we can do this.
So what would be, so if someone was thinking about the nutrition, they were the anomaly, like, I got to dial that in for the open. Yeah. What would be some better low hanging fruit? Because if that's not it, because if you're not going to be able to make the changes right now, that's really going to impact so much. What else should they be thinking about?
Just probably stress and sleep and making sure that they're not, like they're recovering well. Yeah.
For things outside of training, that's what I would say is figure out or start practicing some stress management stuff. Practice something like mindfulness meditation. I mean, most people have a hard time keeping their focus on one thing or not getting distracted for more than like 30 seconds. Well, an open workout's a lot longer than 30 seconds. Yeah. Most people have like ping pong brain in the middle of a workout. They're like, oh, what rep am I on? Oh, my legs hurt. Oh,
oh, there's 7 more minutes.
Exactly. The ping pong brain. So just even 3 weeks of practice, just spending time, breath count meditation, the basic stuff can go a long way in helping people stay focused.
And this year's different, right? We don't know what 3 weeks are going to be like, but I know when it was 5 weeks, I feel like week 4 was always when people were done. It was hard. They were stressed out for 3 weeks straight. And so maybe this year it'll be a little bit different, but I feel like everybody has the pressure. They put the pressure on themselves. So the more rested and like get as much sleep as you can, the better you'll be.
Have you noticed or have you run into people who have digestive issues as they get closer to competitions just because the nerves are really high?
Yeah. I used to coach somebody who would have to use the bathroom like multiple times, like just the mental side of it. Right. Yeah. And I really don't know how to do anything with that other than it's a long process of like talking through, why are you nervous? What is, picture the workout in your head. How do you want it to go? And I don't, and then just try not to eat.
Adam and I had a really interesting conversation I want to say it was 2 months ago in the classroom, but we were talking about a book that was one of the book club ones, and putting things into context is like one of the best ways to reduce the perceived stress. So like if you're feeling anxious before going into an event, like you have 2 options. You can put that into context as like, oh God, I'm nervous, or like, I'm so scared. Or you can put it into context like, man, I am so amped up to go do this. And the context that you put onto that feeling really does have an impact on how it affects your body. Like being nervous and amped up is going to impact your digestion or, your body in a different way than being in a state of fear and dread.
Yeah. There's a book I recommend to people. It's called The Myth of Stress. And it's kind of like what you're saying. It's, cognitive behavioral
CBT.
therapy.
Yep.
And he talks about the way that we think about stress makes us stressful people or not stressful people, right? You know,
explain.
I recommend this all the time. I cannot say enough good things about this book, but it's, say that you are stuck in rush hour traffic and you hate that and you're, why am I here? Blah, blah, blah. You flip it and you tell yourself, I am stuck in rush hour traffic because, and you give all these reasons, like my job is over here. I have to be at work at this time. I have to do this. And like, if you can reason out the reasons why you're stressed, well, then why are you stressed? Because there are reasons why you are where you are. And it's hard to think about it in that way, because I feel like we want to think things are happening to us. We don't have control over this, but everything in our lives, we kind of have control over how we think about it.
Yeah.
So the way that you think about it is really, really important. Just like going into a workout. If you think, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. Other than I am going to attack this workout. I'm going to do my best. And whatever thoughts you have about it can kind of change the whole outcome almost.
That's such a good point. The thing to keep in mind for a lot of people, they're going into an open workout. And I know I've experienced this before. And it's like the one that they don't want to do. And they're dreading it. They're like, oh God, this is going to be so terrible. Remember, you chose this. You chose this sport. You chose this as what you wanted to do. And keeping that in mind is important. But to touch on your point, I think the Stoics, they really were all about that. They almost like used cognitive behavioral therapy in some way, a couple thousand years ago to really bring people back to the idea that focus on what you can control.
Yeah.
And remember, the world's not out to get you. You get to choose how you respond to whatever happens to you rather than, being forced into a set of responses, which I think there's some truth to that. But I also think there's some people who maybe have, psychological things that make it so they can't choose how they respond to things. I think it would be condescending of me to say, oh, but you get to choose whether or not you get angry about this. That may not be true. I might be able to do that, but that doesn't mean that.
I think there's a lot of areas where you can catch yourself and kind of like, maybe you can't completely shut off the thought, but you can catch yourself. Like in my head, I turn it into more of a game. You were talking about being in like traffic and that kind of thing. What's more fun than popping a whole bunch of balloons? Nothing. So if there's one balloon I could pop, I want to pop more. And so I kind of look at like when I get in that rush hour traffic and it's like, and you want to start being all antsy and stressed about it. I'm just like, can I catch myself? Pop the balloon, so to speak, pop it, stress out. Now I want to pop more. And it's a game. It's like, now I want to, and by that, I mean, I want to catch myself every time I'm getting all uptight and stressed about something that I can't control, turn it into a game and pop the balloon, so to speak.
Yeah.
Talking about meditation though, there's a lot of people who couldn't even recognize those balloons when they pop up. Like if you haven't spent time watching your thoughts or paying attention to your thoughts, then it can often be really hard to recognize that anger is just a thought.
Yeah.
Right? That is nothing separate.
No, I feel like recognizing what you're doing is 80% of the battle. If you have no idea what you're doing and why, you can't change anything. But if you can start to see the patterns or trends and start to see behavior that you don't like, that you want to change, then that's when it can actually happen. That's kind of how I feel like I'm helpful or any of us, we're objective. We're not that person. So we can look back and say, well, you do this when this happens. So let's try to figure out how we can stop that.
Or my strategy for rush hour traffic is the engineering your environment. So that was Atomic Habits, which I can't remember the author.
Clear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
James Clear. So either number one, change what time I leave so that I no longer sit in traffic, right?
Right.
Because if you hate sitting in traffic, just change your behavior so that you don't end up in that situation. Or if you have to, what I do, I just listen to audiobooks. Yeah. And then I don't feel like I'm reading this month's classroom, this month's classroom book club book, and I'm getting something done. So I feel like I'm productive and I have, I'm never angry about sitting in traffic.
Yeah. You're taking control of it. And I feel like some people.
Gosh, though, you're right, though. It sounds so stupid when you're talking about it from this side of the fence, because it's like, shut the fuck up. I'm going to be stressed. But once you can kind of practice doing it, you get it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's hard, right? Some people have hard jobs and they work for people that are mean and they don't like them. And so that's like, you can't just quit your job.
You mean like Max?
Yeah, but I do think that
I'm kidding. Just to be clear, Max is awesome.
We love you. But I do think that there is something to be said for helping people realize what they can control and can't. And if it's something you can't control, you gotta let it go. You can't change the way that this person acts towards you or whatever whatever your kids do, but you can't control how you react to it. And do you want to be an angry, stressed out person, or do you want to be somebody who kind of can let it go?
Even keel or comes back to center.
I am not good at a lot of that stuff, but I think that just being aware of it is something that's really helpful.
Being aware of it is the first step. I remember reading a Bruce Lee book, The Tao of Jeet Kune Do, years and years ago. I was probably like 15, but he was very clear. He's like, the first step is recognizing.
Wait, Bruce Lee wrote it?
Yeah. Tao of Jeet Kune Do. You haven't read it?
No, I didn't even know he had a book.
Yeah.
I got it years and years ago.
Good advice.
But first step is recognizing, the first step in changing anything is recognizing that there's a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So being aware of it is step one.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to say he said, talk the talk. So talk right action and then, walk right action or be right action. That was his whole.
Yeah.
I tried to live that as a 14 or 15-year-old when I read the book. I don't think I did a great job. But it's funny, you were talking about stress and putting stress into context and focusing on what you can control. That's the same set of advice that I give to my elite level CrossFitters when they're going into an event or when, they're planning for an event or where to focus their mind before or during an event.
Yeah.
Stay focused on the tangible things that you can control. You're not in control of whether or not you win the event. So as soon as you give some of your attentional energy to that, you're not using that to actually perform better. You know what I mean? So that really does tie into performance, not just stress. That's like a way for improving most aspects of your life, focusing on the controllables.
And so going to the other side, so performance, and then just even people who want to lose weight or gain weight, you can't control what number shows up on the scale.
Yeah.
And that might be surprising to some people, but that number goes up and down, up and down. You cannot change anything. But what you can control is what you eat, your habits, whether you sleep enough, whether you stay hydrated, whether you choose lean protein and vegetables, all of that stuff. That's what I try to focus on, is just like the habits and your behaviors. And the numbers might not change or the numbers might change, but honestly, it's not because of you. Whatever that scale wants to say of the day.
To me, that's inputs and outputs. We control the inputs in that case.
Yeah.
Right. So you can control the foods that you're putting into the system, but you don't control what the system does in response to the food.
Yeah. And that, I feel like, again, if that's sometimes why I have people weigh themselves every day who are scared of doing that, because that number is up and down. You didn't do anything differently. Who cares what that number says sometimes? So yeah, the inputs, the habits, the behaviors, that's all in your control, and everything else is kind of just like you can't make it move.
I wish that one of the things that I could do was get people to strength progression. Just as a simple example is like, I wish that I could give you training that would guarantee that you would have strength progression. But the reality is you're only ever going to get what your body will allow you to get. Like, you can train as hard as you want, but your body's only going to adapt as fast as it will adapt. And some people are fast, hyper responders to training. Some people are slow responders. Some people are non-responders.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's debate about that, but it's definitely the case that there's people who, doesn't matter how much or how intense they train, their bodies just aren't very responsive to training stresses. And I think teaching people to focus on the process,
right,
the training,
the journey,
the foods, whatever it might be, the thoughts, you know what I mean? Focus on the process rather than the outcome. That is a ticket to, I would say that is your best bet for achieving an outcome.
Yeah.
You focus on climbing. If you focus on the top of the mountain, how are you going to follow the path to get to the top?
Yeah.
It's always been my
analogy.
analogy.
You're just going to think that's so hard. I can't do that. Yeah.
So high up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we started talking about what we were going to talk about in this podcast, nutrition was our big topic. Yeah. And I was curious. So if you were going to take me as bring me on as a nutrition client. All right. I have the team potentially hopefully the team quarterfinals, and then I have the age group qualifier, and then hopefully a live event for the semifinals for our team, and then potentially a CrossFit Games berth. What would you recommend me doing from a nutrition perspective starting right now? If I were to start with you tomorrow, today.
You think that you'll probably get through the next stage?
As long as I stay healthy, my past performances indicate that I should be able to qualify through to the next stage.
Yeah. So I would say, kind of that the second stage is kind of the focus right now. And I would say starting probably beginning of March, we would just gradually bump carbs up a little bit each week. Not huge, not 50 gram jumps, but maybe 15 to 20 gram jumps for 3 or 4 weeks. See what we can get away with as far as eating more, making sure that training still feels good, making sure that your weight doesn't go up unless you're okay with a little bit of a jump.
So to be clear, like my body weight has kind of spiked. I'm around the 200 pound mark when normally I'm competing around like 195. So would we still be?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to take away food or try to get you to lose weight 3 weeks before the Open, even though that's not the focus. But I just think, okay, so we have to take away food, and then we're going to have to work our way back up, and that's going to take
time, right?
Time more than I would like. So this is where you're at, Kyle. And let's just work on getting a little bit more carbs, not letting your weight change. Just because I'm thinking, again, if whatever the second stage is and how many workouts you're going to have to do, I want you being able to be as fueled as possible.
So what strategies would you have for someone like me who doesn't like tracking food?
Well, for the most part, I've kind of gotten away from tracking food for people that don't like to. I don't make them do that. So
how would I add 100 grams of carbs if I don't track my food?
Well, I wouldn't have you add 100 grams of carbs. I would have you add 15 grams a day, which is maybe just an extra scoop of something, or add a graham cracker. It's literally a graham cracker, right? One whole rectangle of graham cracker. That's it. So
I definitely just said graham crackers. So I know, to be clear, I like graham crackers.
Yeah. So I would try to give you amounts like that. Half a banana is that amount of carbs or something like that. It's not a big jump.
But that's, so you would add 100 per week or 100?
No,
so he'd need to be eating pretty consistently the same stuff every day.
Which I do. I do eat relatively the same thing
so
every day.
say, I know you don't measure, but say you're at 400 grams of carbs right now. Next week, you would be at 415 grams of carbs every day. And like I said, that's literally half a banana more than what you eat.
So it's just a little
more food. And so 15 grams of carbs is what, 60 calories?
Yeah. Not
a big amount, but I'm just thinking of the fueling potential and getting, again, as much fuel into your muscles as possible. So 415 one week, and then 430 the next week. And then maybe your weight is up a little bit. So we keep it at 430. And then the next week after, 440.
And then the next week after, I weigh more than Mike.
Well, Mike is trying to lose weight.
We're going opposite directions right now.
Opposite directions. So my goal with most people, especially athletes, is getting them to eat as much as they can, keeping whatever their metrics are that are important to them. Weight, how gymnastics feels, how training feels, stuff like that.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that's really what I would change. All I would do is just work on bumping up carbs a little bit.
I can do that. In fact, I might do that.
Yeah. See how you feel.
How many raisins?
Wasn't it last year or something like that? You bumped up Mia's carbs and like...
I bumped up Mia's carbs a ton. She did awesome.
And she like looked better and felt better.
Yeah.
And was eating way more food.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like in general, we can probably all agree that most people don't eat enough, but they don't realize it. And Mia was just feeling kind of run down and tired, and she wasn't sure if she was eating enough. And so she's another one. She can be very consistent. She eats the same thing. So I wasn't worried about weighing and measuring, adding more stress to her life, because she's an athlete. That's what she's focused on. And her weight is pretty stable. She is one of those people that doesn't fluctuate a ton. So I was like, let's just see what we can get you to eat. And we bumped it up every week, and her weight stayed the same. Again, performance felt really good. Yeah. And
she leaned out.
Yeah. I feel like carbs are just magical.
Is your general rule of thumb with competitive CrossFitters that if their weight is stable, that in general they might be or probably are under eating at that point?
Yeah, I think just whatever the potential is, like if you can, and then again, you have to think as you get closer to the open and then the next stage, training is probably going to increase. You're going to be doing harder workouts. So you're going to need more food. So usually what will happen is that kind of evens out. So you can eat more, but your weight will stay the same because you're training harder. Yeah.
And you're taking at least twice as much pre-workout.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's the little bumps in carbs. 10, 20 grams of carbs is less than 100 calories a day. So it's not a big, huge increase.
It's not enough that your body's going to be like, ooh, extra food. I'm going to grow.
I'm going to store it. Yeah. Yeah. It's going to use it for something.
We need like a sad, like Sarah McLachlan type song commercial that's like for less than 100 carbs a day, you can improve your, or what was it, calories?
Calories.
For less than 100 calories per day, we can improve your Metcon score.
Yeah,
I want to know how she didn't cry while she was doing that.
Those dog commercials?
Wait, she was, what do you mean?
Like when she was doing that ad, like that would have made me cry having to talk through that ad. The real ad, not
she wasn't
not
watching
our carbohydrate ad.
So she's actually in it, or she's singing the song?
I think they have her.
That's right. She is
at the end.
Hi, I'm Sarah McLachlan. Yeah, okay.
Donate. And then this just popped into my brain about adding in training volume. That's another reason why I wouldn't try to take away calories now, especially if phase 2 or beyond is your goal, because you're just going to be training a lot harder as the weeks go on. So why do we want to take away food and then make training harder? So some people that might want to be a couple pounds lighter going into that phase 2 or beyond, I just tell them, like, let's just see what training does. Let's see if all the extra Metcons that you do kind of helps that number come down. And usually for guys, that kind of takes care of it.
Yeah. So keep them stable.
Yeah.
But let the training volume burn a little more calorie. And
Yeah.
But I'm also curious, what would you do with people during their taper? So, you've been bumping carbs up going into stage 2. Let's say their focus is stage 2. What, they're likely going to be backing off for a week or maybe even 2 weeks leading into that. Do you adjust their intake at that point, or do you just kind of let it sit and hope that the body weight doesn't come up?
Yeah, I would probably let it sit, but not bump up more, if that makes sense. So if we're working on bumping up, and then if it's a deload week, I would just let it see what happens.
That's actually a question I get a lot. They're like, oh man, should I adjust my food intake on taper days, or on this 2 week deload leading into a competition? I don't even want to call it deload. It's 2 week taper or 2 week peaking block.
What I will say to some people is it depends on your hunger. Some people will have they'll be so hungry because they're not spending as much time at the gym. And I tell them, you have to honor that. You can't just deprive yourself, because then 3 days later, you're just going to eat everything, and that's going to be bad news.
I can honor that.
Or if you train less and then you're not hungry, then I say just eat until you're hungry. Don't worry about like hitting those numbers perfectly. You just kind of listen to what your body's saying.
That's me. Chris, when you were asking at the beginning, like, how do you've always been lean. I think part of it is that my hunger is incredibly tightly tied to my activity level. If I don't do anything, I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
I just won't eat.
Yeah.
And if I train my face off, then I want to go buy all the donuts and Oreos and sit down and eat all of them. So it's like,
we should do a documentary series for like a course of like 3 months where me and you just eat the same amounts and train ish. We're not going to train the same weights and stuff, but I guarantee you I would put on 50 pounds to your 2.
Yeah, I'd put on 2 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to gain muscle. That's the other thing is like my whole life, I've never been on a cut.
You're good at burning everything.
But you're up weight now?
Yeah.
Is it muscly weight, or do you just feel?
It's muscly
It's all
weight.
that Adam Rogers programming.
That's exactly what it is. It's all ass and quad.
Well, and then let's talk about that too, because I feel like I have a couple female athletes. They just have muscle, right? And they think they need to be a couple pounds lighter, but I just don't know if it's doable in a short amount of time, because they just put on muscle easily. And if they touch a barbell, they're not that their weight's going to jump up, but it just depends on what training is too, right? If your weight goes up, like it might just be muscle, and you can't get rid of that as easily.
Well, this is the first time that Adam has ever given me like a real strength progression in the entire time. Like we've been working together for 2.5 years now. And this is the first time I've ever gotten a strength progression. And I had been pretty stable at 195.
Yeah.
And I was like 201 the other day, 202 the other morning. Yeah. I'm like, Adam, I'm not sure I can run right now. I'm also not sure I can do burpees, but like along with that weight gain, my strength metrics have been shooting through the roof thanks to Adam.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I need that.
It's
but
all a balance. And I think it gets in your head a little bit too. Like, I can't do handstand push-ups now. I weigh 2 more pounds, but I also don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true. I can, man, that's another thing that's such a common question.
Yes.
They're like, man, since you and I have been working together, I've put on 8 pounds, but my handstand push-ups continue to get better. I remember I started CrossFit as like 183, and like 5 years in, I couldn't do a single strict handstand push-up when I started.
Yeah.
And 5 years in, I could do 32 and I weighed 202 pounds.
Yeah.
Like there is definitely an advantage to gaining some. Now, granted, I could probably go to 220 and my handstand push-ups wouldn't be.
Yeah. When I talk to people, I'm like 2 or 3 pounds for how much better you could feel and how much more food you could be eating. And you'll probably still feel strong doing gymnastics. It's okay.
Do you think there's a body weight sweet spot for people?
I don't know. I think people think there is. They talk about it based on height and, whatever the CrossFit world
You mean
says.
as like a general recommendation?
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably.
I know that
like doctors will say something and CrossFit people will say something. And
did you mean for gymnastics, Kyle?
I was talking more just from a CrossFit perspective, like based on your height, do you think there's body weight sweet spots for people? So like my thought, this is what I often do with everything. Like I'll look at someone's burpee and reverse engineer, like,
yeah,
oh man, look at that burpee technique. Let's reverse engineer it. But like, I'll look at Matt Frazier, RIP, retired. But I'll look at him and I'm like, all right, what's his height to body weight ratio? And you can just use like a BMI or something like that.
Yeah.
And that gives you, what's the gold standard? How much mass can someone carry per, per inch of height?
Yeah. I do look at height. When people work with me, I have a question they fill out. I do look at their height, and then I don't know if it's intuitive. I'll just say like, yeah, you could probably be around 180, but it's just in my brain. I don't have like a formula. I just, okay, that's your height. That's what you are now. Oh, you could probably be this.
We should make a chart.
Yeah. There's no science behind it. It's just, this is what I think.
It's like, it'd be like the kids' growth chart, right?
Yeah.
So like if you want to be an elite level CrossFitter and you're 5'11", you should probably weigh 200 pounds.
Yeah.
I don't know how accurate that is.
I don't know. I feel like under 6 feet, like 5'11" might be like 185, 190.
Really? But Travis is 5'11".
No, he's not.
Yeah. He's the same height as me.
Yeah. Travis is.
And he's like 203 or 204.
Travis is an anomaly. But he has so much mass in his legs. Again, it's muscle. You can't get rid of that. We've tried. It's not going to happen.
I feel like Noah's what, 5'8", 7, somewhere in that. Probably, I'll give him 5'8" for this podcast. Noah's 5'8", and he's probably 190 pounds, right?
Yeah.
So, sure you want to put someone at 5'11" at 180?
Yeah, well, did I say elite or did I say regular people?
That's a good point, too.
I don't remember what I said.
That's a good point.
Most of the people that come to me are just me, like regular people.
They're like me.
Yeah.
Oh, just regular Becky.
Yeah. But Matt Frazier level, I'm sure there is a height.
They're going to have to carry more body mass.
Yeah.
And what's really crazy to me is that those guys carry, that someone like Travis or someone like Matt carries as much body mass as they do for relative to their height, but they can still run like the wind.
I look at
insane.
Travis and you look at him and maybe it's just me, but I'm like, I don't know where that weight is, but it's in his legs. Like he just has tree trunks, but you can't see it. When you look at him, it doesn't look like his weight is detrimental to him.
That's what Adam's strength program has done to me.
Yeah.
6 pounds, all in ass and
What
quad.
about girls? What do you think is a good weight for female athletes? I feel like this is a hard one.
I think there's way more variance in body weight for women than there is in men.
Yeah.
That like 2 women at the same height can accomplish the same performance level at vastly different body weights. But that's also just a hypothesis, and it's not necessarily like something I have concrete data on.
Yeah.
But I just look at like Calorina versus, how tall is Calorina? 5'7"?
Yeah, she's taller than I am.
5'7", 5'8",
Yeah.
somewhere in that range. And you find another 5'7", 5'8" female, and Calorina probably weighs 10 pounds more, but she makes up for some of her, like burpee difference or handstand push-up or gymnastics capacity differences with the ability to move a barbell, like, an unbelievable ability to move a barbell, where the other person might make up for it with like better burpee speed, better erg capacity, and things like that. So I feel like there is probably more variance on the women's side than the men. I'd love for someone who's super into statistics to take this and run with it.
Help us. Yeah. I think everybody has a weight in their head that they would like to be, but sometimes I don't know if that is too low, like Calorina is a good example of somebody who the scale doesn't really budge. We take away food, we add it in, it doesn't change. So I'm like, let's just eat as much as you can because this is what we're working with.
Chris, what lift does she get up to here?
On this video, she's doing 90 seconds.
She's doing 3 squat cleans though, right?
Yeah. So it's 30 double unders and then into 3 squat cleans. And she increases the weight by 10 pounds every time. And she started here at 125 and she gets all the way up. If we fast forward, if you're listening,
something insane.
You can't see this, but she gets up to 245 for a triple.
245 for an easy triple. Dude, the speed that she just stood that up was insane. I don't stand 245 up that fast.
Did you were there for Travis when he stood his.
Can you call it a triple if you take that much break? Just 3 singles.
3 quick singles.
It's not touch and go, we shall say.
Either way, this is impressive.
But yeah, look at her. She's just muscle. You can't really get rid of that. We're rolling with it.
You could put her on a marathon program and underfeed her.
Yeah. That's what Calorina is doing.
Let's wrap up with maybe what would be some of the big mistakes nutrition wise that you could mess up during the open?
Going into a open workout fasted.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, unless you train at 6 o'clock in the morning and you're used to training at 6 o'clock in the morning and you don't eat any ever.
Even for people that feel good training fasted, I just don't think they're going to perform as well fasted. Like I want to say, I've seen research, which I have, like strength performance is just not as good fasted as it is, in a fed state.
I can back that up because clearly if you look at me, I'm doing bodybuilding for a couple of years.
Yep.
But I was going fasted in the mornings because I just didn't feel like cooking before I went in. And so I just go and I felt great. Like in my head, I was like, yeah, I feel great. I don't know why everybody's talking blah, blah. And then at some point my work schedule got changed. So I couldn't train at that time. So then I would eat before training. And even though I felt great and was all proud about it, as soon as I had that meal and all that stuff beforehand, like things were just so much easier. Yeah. And it was just like, I wasted a year training fasted when I could have just not done that. Like it was a big difference.
You feel good psychologally. But
you're just used to it.
Yeah.
It's like when
but that's the trick though, is I didn't feel bad fasted.
Yeah, no.
That's why I got fucked.
That's how it like with sleep, right? I can sleep 6 hours and be fine. Mm-hmm. Oh, but when you sleep 8 hours, you feel so much better.
Right. Yeah, I think that's how you get got is because you don't feel bad during it.
You don't realize how much better it could be.
If you don't know, now you know.
Yeah.
All right, so fasted would be a huge mistake. Becky.
What is the question?
I was just saying, let's wrap up with some big mistakes.
I think just you can't really change anything now. This is where you're at. Body composition. This is where your strength numbers are. You better find the best way to optimize what you're working with.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You can't change your strength metrics. You can't change your capacity. You can't change your VO2 max. You can't change any of those things in 3 weeks. You can taper and you can bump them up a little bit.
Yeah.
But what you can do is you can improve your economy and your efficiency. You can make your thruster more efficient. You can make your burpee more efficient, and you can improve your breathing patterns. You can those are the things that you can do right now. You cannot change your biological performance metrics.
Yeah. Yeah. So just practice what you have and how you're going to use it.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect practice speaks perfect. I remember my dad saying that to me a million times growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. What else?
Those are my 2.
Yeah, I think so.
Don't do the open fasted. If you are a novice athlete, don't drink a bunch of beer after an open workout because you could give yourself rhabdo. Yeah. Like that's a real potential thing.
Yeah.
The beer makes it accelerate?
Yeah, because of the dehydration.
Dehydrates.
Oh yeah.
That's like the danger with Murph, I think, for a lot of people. But also, dehydration. Becky, you're always harping on water. Yeah. Obviously a huge mistake that people could make, not drinking enough water. That's why I'm here with my 32 ounce.
Yeah, what's the rule? Half your body weight in ounces is a good start.
Just carry a gallon around with you.
Just drink when you're thirsty and then drink a little bit more.
Man, I still should read the book Waterlogged. I really want to dig into that. That's one that like, I feel like I should have read. I want to say, was that Tim Noakes? Has anyone read that?
That sounds
I've never
correct,
read it.
but I haven't.
Yeah. I feel like that should be number one. That should be a book club book for the
Write it
classroom,
down.
writing it down. But I want to hear that argument.
Yeah. Yeah. I think most people don't drink enough water. So just start where you're at and add a little bit more.
My coaching mentor, Chris Webb, will be very angry at me to find out that I never read Waterlog because he recommended it to me about 11 years ago.
Yeah. And then short open workouts, fuel beforehand the day before. Longer open workouts, eat a little bit more after.
And along those same lines, the shorter the workout, the longer the warm up.
Yes. Yep.
So there you go. There's a whole bunch of like,
It's our knowledge.
Well,
tips.
thank you two. Follow Kyle at Kyle, and follow Becky at becky.becky.org.net.
Becky.becky.org.
See ya.